السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. All praise are due to Allah, the Lord, the Cherisher, the Sustainer of the heavens and the earth. May His peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family and his companions and his followers until the day of judgment. Whomsoever Allah guides, no one can misguide him. And whoever is misguided, only Allah Azza wa Jal can guide him. And I bear witness that Muhammad ibn Abdullah is his last and his final messenger. O you who believe, fear your Lord as He should be feared and don't die other than in a state of Islam. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فبما رحمة من الله لنت لهم ولو كنت فظا غليظ القلب لانفضوا من حولك فاعف عنهم واستغفر لهم. Thus it is indeed a great mercy from Allah that you are so gentle with them. Had you been rough or hard-hearted, then surely they would have deserted you. So forgive them and overlook their faults and ask Allah to forgive them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deals with us in the manner in which we deal with other people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deals with us in the manner in which we deal with others. I was at a youth talk just about a week ago, and we were talking about Yawm al-Qiyamah, the Day of Judgment. And one of the youth there said that one of the things that's on their mind is that on the Day of Judgment, all of their deeds and all of their sins will be out and exposed to the entire world. And I said, well, the Prophet ﷺ tells us that the one who hides the sins of his brothers and his sisters, then Allah will hide their sins on Yawm al-Qiyamah. We also know that the one who brings joy and ease and comfort to someone in this dunya, then Allah will bring them joy and ease and comfort on the Day of Judgment. We know that the one who is generous to people in this world, then Allah will be even more generous to them in this dunya and in the akhirah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. Is there a reward for ihsan other than ihsan? Is there a reward for goodness other than goodness? So Allah is teaching us that He gives us exactly what we put forth. The way we deal with people is the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deals with us. And as we approach this month of Ramadan, and I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us all to see Ramadan and to witness Ramadan, Allahumma ballighna Ramadan, I think that we can agree on one thing that we want to get out of this month. And that is the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we could have one thing. And so how do we link these things together? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us what we give to others. And what is it that we want from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And that is His forgiveness. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, he said that on Laylatul Qadr, I would purify myself so that I would be worthy of the forgiveness of Allah. What does he mean? He would say that he's purifying himself, and this means that he is forgiving people. He's cleansing his heart of the ill feelings that he has towards people. He's giving people forgiveness who have wronged him so that he could be worthy that Allah would forgive him. So in the khutbah today, I want to go over a very simple formula for earning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness. This is both in general and more specifically as we approach this month of Ramadan and we prepare to enter into this month. As we look to be of those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala frees from the fire this month. And that is to let go of things. To let things slide with people. To forgive others. To forgive people so we can earn the forgiveness of Allah. To forgive people so that we can earn the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When someone wrongs you, we know that within the bounds of Islam, there's a number of things that we can do. Everyone has been wronged in some way or another. Someone's wronged everybody, whether we know about it or not. And so, we know that within the bounds of Islam, there are a number of things that we can do. Number one, if someone wrongs you, we know that you can make dua against them if you want to. The Prophet ﷺ, he says that the dua of the oppressed is always answered. The dua of the oppressed is answered. So if someone wrongs you and you are oppressed, then you can make dua and pray against that person. But guess what? This comes with a limit. If you want to make dua and transgress bounds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not transgress bounds. It's according to what it is that person did. We know that if someone wrongs you, we can also take from that person's good deeds on Yawm al-Qiyamah, on the Day of Judgment. And if that person doesn't have enough good deeds to give you, you can give them from your sins, from your bad deeds. The Prophet ﷺ tells us this. But also, guess what? There's also a limit to this. If someone has wronged you, you take from their deeds according to how they wronged you. Or you give them from their sins according to how they wronged you. So there's a limit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not transgress bounds. And so, the third thing that we can do, and this is what I want to talk about in the khutbah today, and that is to forgive others so that we can earn the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about getting an equal, when you're seeking justice, the reward is an equal measure. So for whatever that person did, the reward is according to what that person did to you. The dua against them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will only answer according to what that person did to you. The good deeds you're going to take is only going to be according to what that person did for you or did against you. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about forgiveness, what is the reward and what is the measurement for forgiveness? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us. He says, فَأَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ. What is it that you get back when someone has wronged you and you forgive them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't tell us the measure of that. He says the reward for that is with Allah. What does that mean? That means it's unlimited. Imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, I'll take care of it. Imagine the one whose bounty is endless and whose mercy is limitless, saying, I'll take care of it. If you forgive your brother for what they did, or if you forgive your sister for what she did, فَأَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ, then the reward is with Allah. I want to share a story about Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. May Allah be pleased with him, one of the 4 great Imams. We know that in his lifetime, he was imprisoned and he was tortured. They used to whip him until the skin would come, all of his skin off of his back would peel off. They used to torture him for years in prison. And towards the end of his life, he was released from prison and he had a few years of calmness and peace in his life. And so during these last years of his life, the Muslim Ummah, they actually came back and they rallied with him. They understood his stance. They stood by his side. And during these years, people who used to torture him in prison, they used to come and visit him and beg for his forgiveness. So they would come with tears in their eyes and they would say, oh Imam Ahmad, I used to beat you in prison, forgive me. Oh Imam Ahmad, I used to whip you in prison, forgive me. Oh Imam Ahmad, I was the one who used to do this and this and that, so forgive me. And so Imam Ahmad, you used to forgive every single person who asked his forgiveness. Imagine, he's imprisoned, he's tortured for years, and he would forgive every single person who asked his forgiveness. Now his son Saleh, Imam Ahmad's son Saleh, he said to his father, he said, oh my father, these people came and they asked for your forgiveness. But what about those who died and never asked for your forgiveness? What about those people? People who used to torture you in prison, but they died and they never asked you for forgiveness. He said, oh my son, I have forgiven every deceased person for what they used to do to me. He said, my father, I understand that when people came to ask you, that you forgave them, but these people never even asked you to forgive them. You don't know that they want your forgiveness. He said to his son, he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ عَفَى وَأَصْلَحَ فَأَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ. Whoever forgives and overlooks, then his reward is with Allah. And then he said, oh my son, when I studied this verse, I came across a narration by Imam Hassan al-Basri, radhiyallahu anhu, who says, on the day of judgment, every single nation will be brought down to its knees. وَتَرَى كُلُّ أُمَّةٍ جَاثِيَةٍ كُلُّ أُمَّةٍ تُدْعَى إِلَى كِتَابِهَا الْيَوْمَ تُجْزَوْنَ مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. On that day, every nation will be brought down to its knees. Every nation will be called to its record, and every nation will be given recompense to that which they used to do. Everyone will be humbled before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, brought down to his knees on that day, brought down to their knees on that day. He said, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, do not stand up. He will say, do not stand up unless I owe you some ajr. Unless I owe you some reward, unless there's something that I owe you. Don't get up unless I owe you something. And then he says, and I want you to listen to this, he said, and on that day, no one will stand except for those who used to pardon and forgive people in this dunya. No one will stand up on that day except for those people who used to pardon and forgive people in this world. He said, so I want to be of those who will stand up on that day. So that I've forgiven, he said, so such I have forgiven those who were deceased and those who are living who didn't even ask me for forgiveness. And he said, what is upon a man is to ensure that Allah will not punish anyone on their behalf on Yawm al-Qiyamah. What is upon a man is to make sure that Allah will not punish anyone on their behalf on Yawm al-Qiyamah, on the Day of Judgment. You know, sometimes people wrong us and we think to ourselves, you know what, we're not going to settle scores in this dunya. We're not going to go through the headache. We're not going to address it. We're not going to talk to them. And guess what? Allah will be our judge. You hear this from people. They've wronged me so much and I'm so hurt by it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to judge us on Yawm al-Qiyamah. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to settle scores. Allah will judge between us. And you hear, brothers and sisters, be careful about having this type of, these manners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be careful about seeking justice on Yawm al-Qiyamah rather than seeking the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Because guess what? Just as you are sure that someone has wronged you, that someone has oppressed you, the person who has wronged you are just as sure as you are that you've wronged them. You're sure, you know for sure that this person has wronged you, but they know for sure that you have wronged them. And so you can stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Yawm al-Qiyamah and you can say, today I want justice from this person. But what happens when that person comes and stands before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you on Yawm al-Qiyamah and brings forth evidence that you knew nothing about? And what if things don't go in your way on that day? What if justice is against you on that day? You stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rules against you. Be careful about standing and wanting justice on Yawm al-Qiyamah. But guess what? What if someone has wronged you and you stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you plead your case, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His ultimate wisdom and His ultimate justice rules in your favor? That person has oppressed you. You are the oppressed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rules in your favor on that day. Now what? Now you have tens of other cases to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with. Because now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at us in the eyes of justice and not the eyes of mercy. So you wronged someone with even the smallest, littlest thing that you never even gave a second thought to. You're going to get justice on Yawm al-Qiyamah about these things? These tens of other cases? Now, the bad news is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge between us on every little thing. Because you wanted justice on Yawm al-Qiyamah, Allah will give you justice on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And whoever seeks justice on Yawm al-Qiyamah, it's not going to be a good day. Because of all our flaws and all of our faults, and all of our shortcomings and all of our mistakes. The one who doesn't stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at them in the eyes of mercy, it's not going to be a good day on that day. Even so, when you want to get justice, even with yourself against your own self. If you want justice on that day, okay, let's look at the prayers that you offered to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What kind of khushu'ah did you have? Let's look at the time you wasted in this dunya. Let's look at the neglectfulness that you had of yourself and your life and your deen and Allah. Let's look at the injustices that you had with people, the way you treated others. This is what it would be like if you seek justice on that day. So when someone wrongs you, be careful about saying that Allah will judge between you and waiting on that day on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Don't deal with other people like this, and don't deal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like this. هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان? Is there a reward for goodness other than goodness? Allah will deal with us in the way that we deal with people. So try to resolve our issues in this dunya. If you have some issues with someone, resolve them in this dunya if you can. Talk to that person if you can. And if you can't resolve them, at least move on. At least say, I've cleansed my heart of this. This does not harbor in me. This does not create a nest inside my head. This is not consuming me in this world. I've moved on. SubhanAllah, you see people, they have an issue with their own parents. And they refuse to talk to their parents. They have their issues with their own brothers and sisters. And they refuse to talk to their brothers and sisters. They have issues with those whom they knew all their lives. They only saw good things from someone for their entire life, and that person does one thing wrong, and they've cut off ties completely. You know, I had a brother that I grew up with. We were very close, very good friends. We had a falling out in college. We got into an argument, we disagreed, and then we put forth, maybe very little effort to kind of try to resolve things, and then we both just went our own separate ways. A year goes by, a couple years goes by, a decade goes by, and we're not talking. And this brother whose father used to teach me Quran, his father passed away, and I was at the janazah. And I saw this brother who I hadn't spoken to in over 10 years. And we finally got to talking. We said, what's so valuable in this dunya? That people just, that these are the things that consume us. These little things these little mistakes, these little differences. Is this dunya really worth it? This dunya, the lowest of the low, this world, the earth, the world that we live in. We deal with people not just how you want them to treat you, but how you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to treat you. So address your differences. And if you can't, move on and don't let those things consume you. I in no way want to belittle how difficult it is to do this. I know that for sure sometimes someone told a lie against you and it was completely fabricated. Sometimes someone has wronged you and humiliated you when you were nothing but good and kind to that person. Sometimes someone took something of yours that does not belong to them and they had no right to do that. I don't mean to belittle these things and belittle the issues that we have with people, but move on because it's only going to hurt you more than it's going to hurt that other person. One time I was at a congregation and there was an imam who was dedicated to lead the salah. And something occurred, and without getting into the details and the issues, something occurred and he refused to lead the congregation in salah. And I was there and I was extremely turned off by the whole way in this everything went down. And this imam who I saw who I really looked up to did something and he really let me down and I was really disappointed. And I didn't see this imam very often, but every single time I would see him, Shaitan would remind me. Do you remember what he did that one time? And it would always be in the back of my mind whenever I saw him. And then one day, after a few years passed, we were talking, and he told me, he said, do you remember that day that thing happened? And I refused to lead salah on that day? I said, yeah, I remember. He said, did you know that I felt so terrible about it that I went home and I read 26 juz of Quran that night? I said, subhanAllah. Here I am 3 years later thinking about this thing when he's already resolved his issues with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that day, on that same day. Forgive so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can forgive you. The Prophet ﷺ says, اغفروا يغفر الله لكم. Forgive and Allah will forgive you. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفر لكم إن الله الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم يوم الدين أما بعد. If the brothers can move to your left and move forward as much as you can, just to make more room, inshallah. We know the story of Al-Ifk. And in this story, this was when some of the hypocrites of Medina, they concocted a slander against Aisha radhiyallahu anha, the mother of the believers. And they said that Aisha radhiyallahu anha, she had committed adultery. And the hypocrites of Medina were starting to spread these rumors and make up lies about Aisha radhiyallahu anha. And even beyond these hypocrites, there were some of the companions who continued to talk about these rumors. So they didn't know better, but they would have dinner parties or they would invite people over. And they would say, what did you hear? This is what I heard. What did you hear? And talk about the slander of Aisha radhiyallahu anha. One of these people, his name was Mistah ibn Uthatha. He was the cousin of Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, the father of Aisha radhiyallahu anha. And Mistah was very poor. And Abu Bakr used to give him an allowance. He used to pay him a salary just to take care of him because he was so poor. And so Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, he heard about Mistah spreading these rumors about his own daughter, the wife of the Prophet, that she had committed adultery. And so Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, he swore, he said, Wallahi, by Allah, I will never pay him a single dirham. I will never pay him a single dirham for what he did to my daughter and my family and the Prophet. I will never pay until these verses were revealed. In Surah An-Nur, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. This verse was revealed about Abu Bakr. وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا. So let them forgive and overlook. Would you not love that Allah would forgive you? Let them forgive and overlook. Would you not love that Allah would forgive you? Except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says this in the plural. That means this deal is not just for Abu Bakr. This deal is for every single one of us. He says, would you all not love that Allah would forgive you all? Would you all not love that Allah would forgive you all? So forgive and overlook. So Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, he said, Bala, Wallahi, inni la uhibbu an yaghfir Allahu li. Yes, by Allah, I would love that Allah would forgive me. Yes, by Allah, I would love that Allah would forgive me. Now imagine, this is someone who's slandering Aisha radhiyallahu anha, his daughter. He's saying, forgive him, overlook his fault. Wouldn't you love that Allah would forgive you? This is a deal for all of us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Ali Imran, what's translated as, be quick in the race for forgiveness from your Lord and for a garden whose width is that of the heavens and the earth, prepared for the righteous. Those who spend freely, whether in prosperity or in adversity, who restrain their anger, وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ, and they pardon all people. وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ, and they forgive people, for Allah loves those who do good. And in Surah Ash-Shura, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us about justice versus forgiveness. When someone wrongs you, He teaches us about justice versus forgiveness. He says, the people, when rebellion afflicts them, they avenge themselves, meaning they seek justice. And the payback of an evil deed is that of equal measure. So if someone wrongs you, you can seek justice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, that's okay, but the payback is exactly equal. You find that when people want justice, in reality they don't want justice. What do they want? They want revenge. They want revenge. They want to transgress. Someone harmed you this much, they want to harm them back even more because they want revenge. But Allah is not vengeful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows equal measure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. And then He says, but whoever lovingly forgave, meaning they chose forgiveness over justice, فَأَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ, then his reward is with Allah. Allah does not quantify. Verily, Allah does not love transgressors. He does not love those who are vengeful. He does not love those who want to go beyond the way in which they were wronged. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows justice, it's permissible, but then He's saying that if you forgive, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you beyond measure. And then He says, as for the one who has patience and forgave, this is from the most noble of deeds. Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu narrates a hadith. He says that there will be a man on Yawm al-Qiyamah standing before Allah. And from the wording of the hadith, you get the sense that this man probably doesn't have a whole lot going for him on that day. He will stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but the thing he has going for him is that he used to loan people money. And that when people couldn't pay him back, he would forgive them of their debts. This is what he had going for him. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say on that day, He will say, forgive this man and enter him into paradise, for I am more worthy of forgiving his debt to me than he is of forgiving others' debts to him. And on Yawm al-Qiyamah, there will be people standing on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and they will see in a distance a palace in Jannah. And I'm going to end with this. They will see in the distance a palace in Jannah, and they will ask, "Oh Allah, what messenger does that palace belong to? What Nabi, what Rasul does that palace belong to?" And he will be told, this palace is for the one who forgives his brother. He will say, "Ya Allah, I forgive them. I forgive them." I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purifies us and lets us forgive others so that we are worthy of His forgiveness. Allahumma اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وقنا واصرف عنا برحمتك شر ما قضيت. الله اتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وأقم الصلاة.